Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Oh, buddy, I'm feeling fantastic. Can you hear that off in the distance? Football's coming back very, very soon. The matches will be played. I think that's reason to celebrate. I have a frosty beverage to celebrate those matches. I knew you would as well. There it is.
That was a quick one. Cheers.
Cheers to you. Cheers to the football. I'm just happy it's back. It feels like it's been too long, dare I say, since like the really meaningful games that we love to watch have been around. So excited to have them back.
Way long. I mean, we get NWSL back. Champions League knocking on the door. We're going to get some Champions League action September 4th. That's a Wednesday. Little programming reminder. We'll be back, I think maybe 2 or 3 shows from now. We'll get into that a little bit later with a proper Champions League preview. We want to give ourselves a little time to get the Apple IIe warmed up. You gotta give it a little time to get humming over there.
Entering our sophomore season of covering the UEFA Women's Champions League, you're exactly right about the Apple IIe to crunch all the data. It's like an old Chevy where you kind of got to get it warmed up a little bit to get it running in peak performance. Yeah. But the Champions League, it's my favorite tournament, but we have pressing matters at hand to deal with right now.
So, busy transfer season, a lot of action, a lot of activity, a lot of excitement, a lot of crossings of the pond. Here and fro, and your boys love a draft as much as as much as the next guy or gal. And shout out to our guy Peter Weiss, who was using the term "lass." So I think I want to kind of try to find a way to work that in. I had to do a Google search, is last PC or not? Turns out it's totally above board. So shout out to our guy. Back to the matter at hand, though. We're going to draft our favorite, not necessarily the best or not what we're predicting is going to be the most impactful, but these are going to be our favorite transfers of this transfer window. We're going to go 1 to 10. So essentially, I'll get 5, you'll get 5. If the stars align, we'll have most of the same 10. But I don't know. Something tells me there's going to be a little bit of variance on our list. So I'm excited to get into this draft with you. No draft shenanigans on this one. I'm going to give you the option. I'm going to defer. You let me know if you want to go first or if you want to go second. And that leads me very nicely into my trademark, Mr. Grant Engel. Where do you want to get started?
Okay, I won't count this as shenanigans. I appreciate you giving me the option of whether I want first or second pick. You know what? In a gentlemanly way, and also because I'm just curious to see where you'll go. Please, my good man, after you please take the first pick of the draft.
Tabitha Chawinga.
Okay, good call.
I think obviously going from PSG to Lyon, it's hard not to think about Lyon getting so close to another Champions League title, but also not so close. I mean, I think they were pretty much handled in that final by Barcelona. Big time move. I think Tabitha Chawinga, probably the most lethal scorer in all of Europe.
Yeah.
Top 2 scorer, though, in her own family. We'll talk about that one later. But tremendous signing. Fits a little bit of a need. I think as the Champions League went later and later, all right, now that you've got Melchi Dumornay, who's a really good player, they're trying to find Cascarino, Diani, they're trying to balance everything out, make it work. I think the attack, Les Sommer, obviously some injuries, Hegerberg, the same, trying to work her way back. I think Chawinga is going to be a rock solid signing for them. I think she's going to be immediate playing time, and I fully expect her to lead that team in goals next season.
Wow. Okay. I like that as in a little extra spice on top of the take.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We had heard about it from a friend of the program, Asil Tufayli, former Lebanon number 10, now great journalist for Forbes. And also, congratulations to Asil talking about the transfer window. Now
Congrats, Asil.
The new women's football editor for Vavel USA. Check that out. Find it wherever you can. I digress, but Asil had told us, Cascarino likes to play on the right, but you already had Caridatu Diani there for Lyon. So now you have the natural fit of Tabitha Chawinga on the left. You'll have Diani on the right. And I think you're spot on. It's why I had Chawinga so high up on my board as well. I think Dumornay at 21 years old is going to get a lot of playing time at center forward. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like you mentioned, Les Sommer and Hegerberg, they're on the downside of their career, and they can come in and spell, maybe give you 20 minutes here and there when they need. But that front three, Chawinga, Dumornay, Diani, we're cooking with gas over there.
That's going to be real tough to stop. Very excited about how that trio is going to line up for sure. Who'd you have at the top of your board if it wasn't Tabitha Chawinga?
I'm gonna make my second pick, and this is gonna seem spiteful, to be honest. I mean, no offense. Rosa Kafaji to Arsenal.
No!
Dude, you see, I'm sorry to do this to you. She was great in the Champions League. You spotted it right away. She's an excellent young player. She keeps her head up. She has a nose for goal. I think she's going to be terrifying for Arsenal. And as a Manchester City fan who barely finished past Arsenal, was pretty comfortable beyond Arsenal, but barely lost the league to Chelsea, I was not psyched about that pick. And the more I thought about it and the more I thought about this draft, I was like, man, I'm really, really kind of unhappy about Rosa Kafaji going to Arsenal. And I think that kind of tells the story of how great that is for your Gunners.
Totally agree. This would have been my third pick. I would have went right here after your second pick. So props to you. Totally snaked me. But yeah, Kafaji, monster talent. And I think this is a player that Arsenal sorely need. Mm-hmm. Somebody that's fast, that can have eyes upfield, that could connect passes from distance and just think quickly, move quickly, battle in the midfield, be creative, score goals if needed. I think Arsenal's offense, kind of had the tendency to stall out a little bit here and there when times got a little tough. Kafaji's kind of player that can really cut up defenses. I went back and looked at her group stage in the Champions League. BK Häcken from the Damallsvenskan won 3 group stage matches out of 6. They swept Real Madrid, beat them twice. They won away at Paris FC, and they drew away at Chelsea. 8 matches for Rosa, 4 goals, 1 assist. She was awesome. And that Häcken side won with defense, and she was their offensive creator along with a couple other great players that they had, Yusufa and some others that were just fearless in attack. And I think they had the confidence that defensively they would be able to hold it down. But she's just such a great player. And against her couple minutes here, stateside was already cooking. You could just see it. And I think she's still just 21 years old. So this is a player that her prime is still probably a few years away. And I think Campo came on and talked to us a little bit about this. He mentioned that Rosa came from a little bit of like a checkered kind of background and, had some injuries early. So she really hasn't even been a full-time player like some of the other 21-year-olds. So I think the sky is absolutely the limit for a player like that.
I totally agree. And I mean, we sung the praises of BK Häcken because they had an identity, they knew who they were, and they had good and talented players on that roster. Mm-hmm. But your point about they won with defense and then relied on Kafaji to really kind of be, as a young player in a Champions League setting, to kind of be that offensive hub. Now you drop her in an Arsenal side that already has some more talent around her to kind of take some of that pressure off of her. I'll just say it again, man. I'm a City fan, and I saw that and was like, oh boy, that's not ideal for my club.
I feel that. All right. Well, if you were going to snake me, I think it's a worthy snake for sure. So Chawinga's off the board, Kafaji's off the board. I'm going to go with my third pick, who was actually my second favorite signing, and that is Ewa Pajor. Probably exactly what Barcelona needed. Like when you think about like that just goal machine type. Looking at what she did in the Bundesliga last year, 19 matches, 18 goals, 6 assists.
Pretty good.
114 career matches, 95 goals, 20 assists. So she's just got a shade over 1 goal contribution per appearance in the Bundesliga. Still just 27 years old. 5-time winner of the Bundesliga, Champions League runner-up 3 times. I think she's going to be a perfect fit in Barcelona. I think she already notched a couple goals, and I'm not sure some warm-up matches, but didn't take her long. And I think she's going to be awesome too with all those creative players. I jotted down in my notes. I'm going to save this for a little bit later in terms of what their attacking lineup might look like. It's just, if we thought it was insane last year, this is just ridiculous. But yeah, I think Ewa Pajor is going to be a monster signing for Barcelona. A real coup for that team in Liga F, taking one of the supreme talents of Bundesliga.
Yeah, 27 years old in her absolute prime. What can you say? It's another massive weapon for Barcelona. Mm-hmm. So let me just move to the next one. And you know what? I
I'm
realized.
so pissed. I already know what it is. I'm so pissed.
And so, with apologies to our guy Vespa, because I realized we called these our favorite pickups. I think whether it's favorite or like the criteria is loose. We talked about it like we could look at it and be like, this is most impactful. This is our favorite. This is one we think is going to resonate around the league. Kika Nazareth to Barcelona from Benfica. Again, apologies to our guy Vespa.
Shout out Vespa.
It's going to take a little bit, and I think we can do the exercise now whenever you're ready, but it's going to take a little bit to figure out where Pajor and Nazareth and Betuelo and CGH, where all these attacking players are going to play. I mean, obviously they offloaded Caldentey. We might talk about that later. But, I mean, Kika Nazareth has a skill level, and this is where I'll just kind of raise my hand for some level of ignorance, is that obviously you know what time it is with Pajor, that she's a great player. I did not watch a ton of Wolfsburg last year, so there is a little element of unknown for me when it comes to Pajor. Kika Nazareth, we know the deal with her. Her appearances in the Champions League, like she had the 6 scorpion kick for a goal in the Portuguese league for Benfica. I mean, she is a superlative skilled talent, and she also has a great level. She has a really kind of genius level of passing as well. So again, speaking of massive weapons to add to Barcelona, I think Kika is right up there with Pajor.
Totally agree with that, and definitely shout out to Vespa. Great friend of the show.
Absolutely.
Benfica had a rough go of it. Hopefully they've got some talent to reload. Good program there, so I think you kind of fully expect it, but might take them a minute. They're back in action September 4th.
Nice.
With some Champions League preliminaries, so we'll be locked in. So Vespa, get at us. Let us know how you're feeling about that. But yeah, Kika of Nazareth, just a supreme talent as well. I think I just jotted down, I'm not sure if it's going to be, let's see, Betuelo maybe on the left, Pajor in the middle, CGH on the right, and then you could trot out a midfield of Alexia, Aitana, and Kika, and maybe Kira Walsh a little deeper, maybe a back 3. You know, I think those 6, though, from an attacking standpoint, Alexia, Aitana, Ewa Pajor, Kika, CGH, Sama Betuelo. I mean, what do you... there's no good option. Any of those 6 on the ball, and your blood pressure is pretty much maxed out.
Yeah, and if you convince one to come off the bench, like, you know, if you're rotating a couple of those players off the bench, I mean, now there's no relief for any opponent facing Barcelona, which in a state where there was already no relief when you were playing Barcelona.
Yeah, they reloaded big time. That's a great call. It's going to be, I think they're going to rotate those rosters, and I think there's enough turnover. A coach can credibly say, hey, let's figure out what our best options are here. Let's not get too upset early in the season about, you know, who's starting and playing time and all that.
Yep.
Oh, and side note, I almost, even though I had Pajor 2 and Kika 4 on my list, I almost went with Kika because I just wanted to wave my Kika flag, but I stuck to my big board, you know, as a good drafter does, you know. I want to stick loosely with Barcelona, but this is a player exiting the Champions League champions. 5th pick, give me Lucia Roberta Tough Bronze.
There we go.
I just... courtesy of Wikipedia for Lucy Goosey's full name. Nice. I just love the notion of, like, I don't know, Hannah Hampton or Musovic in goal. That's already off to a great start. How about a back 4? Ashley Lawrence, Millie Bright, Khadijah Buchanan, Lucy Bronze.
That's pretty tough.
I think Leanne Sanderson came on our show, talked to us about the winning virtues of one Lucy Bronze. Yeah. And I think, you know, it definitely made, you know, obviously I'm coming into the sport a little bit later, so I wasn't here for the prime Lucy Bronze years. Leanne definitely helped me recontextualize what kind of player that is, you know, the kind of leader that she is, and like just kind of like the tone setter, just a winning football player. Yeah. And I think that really helped clarify for me, like, just how important she is as a player. We saw her get huge stops. We saw her be threatening in front of goal and do pretty much everything in between, you know, and play really, really big, you know, come off the bench in some spots, you know, when needed. Just a true professional. I think she's going to fit in great at Chelsea. I'm very excited to see what she looks like over there.
Yeah, immediately fits into a winning culture, immediately helps set an incredibly high standard. I think that's it's a great move, especially like for Sonia Bonpastor coming in there. It's like, okay, I'm new in this. Lucy's new in the club. They're new in this in terms of being a Chelsea football club. And then they can kind of go at that together and be like, hey, help us fit in, help us kind of maintain the standards that have already been set. I think it's a great pairing. And I'm totally with you. Like, you know, even if I started kind of watching women's football a little before you, like, it was hard even a couple years ago to get WSL or just like overseas women's football information. So I thought Leanne really kind of cleared it up for us. Like, okay, this is an all-timer that we're talking about who still plays at a very high level.
Yep.
Exactly what you're saying. She walks in, instant respect, instant credibility, can only help the club from there.
Great vibes around Lucy too. I think I'm definitely excited. And you know what they say, draft starts at 6. I'm actually curious before they say that. Did you have bronze on your top 10?
I did not. I felt like okay. Sorry. She was right at the end of my 10, not in my 5, not in the 5 that I was hoping to draft.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I had her at 5.
Nice. Okay. And, to take people behind the curtain, I was telling Dino, like, I wanted to go a little vibes based because there are so many like great players who are moving around. So I don't know if this is, I honestly, I don't care so much if this is great drafting strategy or not. I don't know. Like, it's not like we're fielding 5-a-side teams to play against each other in this draft. So I'm going to do the thing that I want to do. You guys know what time it is. You guys know my allegiances. Aoba Fujino, Manchester City Football Club.
Let's go.
20-year-old Japanese maven, showed an incredible talent, incredible skill, audacious skill in the 23 World Cup and then again in the 24 Olympics. She was the MVP of the WE League in Japan in the 21-22 season and the 22-23 season.
Wow.
She's a goal scorer. She's a genius. She's creative. And now she's going to be running up front with Bunny Shaw and Vivian Miedema, not to mention Lauren Hemp and Mary Fowler as well. So I think the sky is the limit for Fujino. I just love the way she plays. Like, I think of it, it's a goofy thing to say, but if I was actually good enough to play forward when I played, and I wasn't like a defensive midfielder, which not to say that defensive midfielders have less skill, but in high school American soccer, they definitely have less skill. So that's why I played there. But like, that's how I would want to play as a forward. And so I am super psyched to have her, and we're going to need the firepower going into this next season.
I love that pick. That's a great pick. And I'm so excited to see Fujino in that sky blue kit, running alongside Hasagawa too. Like, man, that could be a nice little connection point there. They've got the national team link up experience. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Great pick. I love it. I'm excited to see what Fujino looks like on that squad because attack-wise, I think offensively, City was pretty potent last year. And I think Fujino adds a tremendous curveball. You think you're used to kind of seeing where the ball is coming from, and I think Fujino will just kind of hit you from the craziest angle with the most audacious kind of shot that I think nobody was expecting. I think we could chalk ourselves up for at least a few of those this season. I'm very excited. That's a great pick.
I appreciate it. I think I'd also like to see her take one of those weird angle shots and maybe the keeper gets a glove on it or maybe it bounces off the crossbar and then falls right to Bunny Shaw. And then what's anybody going to do about that?
I don't know. Somebody might get hurt in that situation. Bunny with a little putback.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my pick here, and maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, but I loved what the Chicago Red Stars did grabbing Ludmila.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that Swanson-Ludmila pairing, she's such a tank. I think she is 29 years old. I think she is still in her like absolute physical prime. She was cooking
for sure
at the Olympics. And it wasn't just speed. It was speed and power and touch. I think it's just the perfect kind of like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like an NFL 1-2 punch at running back, like when you've got like the big bruiser and you've got like the sleek sort of like fast cutter, and I think there's just no real good answer. I think those two running alongside each other are going to give defenses absolute headaches this season, what's left of it. And if Ludmila can take that Olympics form into the NWSL, I mean, Chicago all of a sudden is a lot more interesting of a playoff type team. I think if they can get it going, and I think no reason not to think that they can.
We've talked about them throughout the season with kind of this defensive stance that they take, this defensive like positioning that they take. And then we've talked about Mal Swanson as a one-player offense. Now you get to take a little bit of that pressure off of Swanson. And we had talked about too, kind of when we were doing like our halfway check-in point, like could the Red Stars potentially win 3 games in a row in a playoff scenario? And we thought it would be a real tough stretch for them to beat three really good teams in a row. I still don't know if they can do that, but they have now continued to move themselves toward, man, if you're a top 4 seed and they're your second round matchup, you're still not super excited about that.
Nope. They've got the defensive chops. They've got Nair in goal. Knockout stage Nair.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. And I think those two players up front that if they're on, like they're going to score, you're going to have to probably outscore them. And then you're going at that defense and Alyssa Nair back there. Yeah, obviously Sam Staub, torn Achilles, devastating, type injury. She would have made that Chicago defense a lot more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
But still, you're going to have to really beat them if that's the playoff matchup that you draw. My Orlando Pride's probably, it could be in that 1-4, 1-5 kind of matchup. So super live for that second round. Who knows? I might be at that game. We'll see.
There you go.
But yeah, give me Ludmila in that 7th slot. And that means that you are up 8th pick in this draft.
Okay, I'm looking at my list, thinking about the vibes. I have a few in contention, but you went NWSL. I'm going to do a little bit of copycat league here. Give me Courtney Vine to the North Carolina Courage. Extremely speedy player, 26 years old, was the hero in that World Cup for Australia, making the winning penalty against France in the knockout stage. We talked to the great journalist Samantha Lewis from ABC Australia, one of the emerging faces of women's football over there in Australia. You drop her into the North Carolina Courage. You talked about Kettleline coming back. They've already been able to put together, a pretty solid season, minus the last year's MVP of the league, Kettleline. Now you add Vine to add another layer of speed, another player who can kind of help connect some of those pieces. I think she's going to take, I don't know, can she take people by surprise after the World Cup performance? Because people remember the penalty. I don't know if they remember the other aspects of her play, but I think she's going to play a big role in pushing the Courage forward this season.
I think she will be able to take people by surprise because obviously the Courage played not the most exciting brand of football early part of the NWSL season. So I think whatever tape is out there, I think it'll kind of be made obsolete, because I think she's going to change their offense quite a bit.
Yeah.
And obviously Kettleline coming back as well. I mean, it is going to look like a completely different team. And the Courage played very, very tough. Like the first half of this NWSL season, they were an extremely tough out, impossible to beat at home. So I think they're another team that I think could make a good amount of noise in the playoffs. Definitely maybe win one, push a team that, who knows? I mean, 2 wins and you're in the final.
Exactly.
I think they're probably right on the outside looking in of a team that could be able to do that. And then if the Courtney Vine signing really works out, that might bump it up to, hey, this is now our expectation.
Yeah. I mean, 10 goals, 6 assists in 18 appearances for Sydney FC in her last season. So, I mean, she's a real player to add. And I think you're right. I think it's a great point. She'll also just be adding a level of excitement to the brand of football they play, which should be good for the fans over there in Cary, North Carolina.
Absolutely. All right. So that's the 8th pick. This is my last pick. I want to shout out Rome Luchter from Ajax.
All right.
Signed with PSG. Different skill set than Katoto. So I think that's somebody you can play up front. Also somewhat of a goal machine. She's got some huge shoes to fill. So PSG moves on from Tabitha Chawinga, moves on from Sandy Baltimore, moves on. Well, Lika Martins, congratulations. She's expecting. So a lot of changes up front for PSG, but I think Luchter's a really, really nice fit for them. Fast, aggressive, offensively, just completely unafraid, kind of a big game player. She's one of those players where when we saw Ajax come up on the short end of the stick, you could really kind of see her level of passion and just kind of how disappointing those losses were. I think she's going to be a great fit in Paris. Those passionate fans are going to definitely embrace a player like that. And I expect, I don't know, big time expectations for Luke through the season at PSG.
Totally agree. I think PSG is really trying something here with the upgrades that they're trying to make to their roster. Obviously losing Chawinga, pretty devastating, but they didn't kind of sit back and just let that happen. They made multiple additions to their roster. And I will tell you, Luchter, I had her right up there with another PSG addition where I was trying to decide okay, what is the best PSG addition that they needed to really address? especially after, they get sent out of the Champions League by their rival Lyon. We just kind of left those set of matches thinking, okay, like PSG, they're not too far away, but they're not particularly close to Lyon, and they needed to upgrade in a few different spots. And I think Luchter was a prime target, especially after losing Chawinga.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it sort of feels like, or last year, it sort of felt like PSG was trying to like beat Lyon at Lyon ball. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if necessarily they're making a conscious effort to say, we need to like play our style of football here. Not that we're not going to beat them at their game, but we're sort of at a point now where we need to kind of start defining our identity.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting, the moves that they made. Obviously, there was another big one. I'm not sure if that's your last pick, but if not, we'll hit it in the names and players section here. But let's just kind of scoot ahead. 10th pick. Who is your fifth most favoritist transfer of this transfer window?
Let me do it, because that's my goalkeeper. Let's just get right to it. It's Mary Earps to PSG. I mean, so obviously you know what I was saying when I said, like, I like some of PSG's other moves. PSG, what we saw in the Champions League, they needed an upgrade at keeper.
Yep.
So between Constance Pico and Kidrnik, PSG was just kind of looking for answers in goal, especially when you have to go up against Lyon, both in your league, in the cups, in the Champions League. You just needed a little more strength back there at goal. And no disrespect to Pico or Kidrnik, but they're not Mary Earps. And so to see that they were able to add an elite shot stopper, a popular player, a good leader, a well-liked player, I'm in the tank for Mary Earps. And I was excited to see this. And I think it's one of those moves where it's like, okay, yeah, we're clearly playing second fiddle to this bigger, more powerful club, but we're in this to win. And whether we scoop a cup versus them, or maybe we win a regular season match and we can actually challenge for the title, we're going to go for that, because we're not just going to let Lyon run this league forever.
Yeah, love that pickup. Happy to get old Merps out of
course,
that part of Manchester as well, just because everything floating around there. And yeah, I think it's the right move for them. We saw the goalkeeping get a little shaky. And I think when the stakes are that high, it's like essentially champions of Europe, that's on the line. A player like Mary Earps, I mean, it becomes a position no longer of worry. Great pick, great way to round out the draft. Not that we were going for this, but I think we've got a pretty solid 10 maybe. Maybe on defense we're a little bit light, but I don't know. This would be quite the squad we put together with our favorite transfers here. But now on to everyone's favorite game. Let's name some players.
Oof.
Who was it tough for you to leave off? I've got 3 names on my list that were in my top 10 that didn't get drafted, so I definitely want to hit those 3. But I want to hear who you had that was just right there outside on the periphery.
The toughest one for me, and I didn't want to skew like too American, but I mean, we talk about NWSL as an elite league. Obviously, we have a lot of pals over in Europe. We're making new pals as we cover the U.S. women's national team and NWSL over here. I think Jess Carter to Gotham is kind of huge.
I love that move. Yeah.
I mean, that, like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, like that is a massive power up for them.
I mean, still just 26 years old. All that resume, all those big time matches. I mean, none of that sweat. Like she just is like full lockdown, barely. She looks like she could dominate games at 70-75% capacity.
Yep.
What an excellent player. She was right outside my top 10.
Yep.
But yeah, I love that signing. A couple other big time, medium time signings for the NWSL I want to hit. Obviously, Lacey Santos talked about that on the show.
Yes.
Delphine Cascarino, you hit that up top. Chloe Lacasse, Canadian national, moves from Arsenal to the Utah Royals. They should be excited. Katie Zellum goes from United to Angel City. And Jessica Silva to Gotham.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about those Jenna Neiswanger crosses, she's a big forward. She plays big. A good counterpunch to Esther and Lynn Williams. I don't know. There's definitely going to be some minutes for Jessica and probably some goals too. She's making her return to the NWSL. So yeah, I think all in all, NWSL, I kind of like what they did. Nothing too over the top, but really, really solid moves. I think they were kind of opportunistic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Jessica Silva is a great call out. Once again, sorry, Vespa, your players are getting stolen off your squad. That's what happens when you have a lot of great players. But Benfica, we already know what time it is with that culture and then the way they're able to play. So looking forward to see the next crop of great players they produce who will then hopefully stay there and then grow that league. You're totally right about Lacey Santos. I mean, she was just outside of my 10. she could add another element of toughness too to an already kind of mentally tough Washington Spirit squad. So I think she's super exciting. I want to point out Alba Redondo to Real Madrid from Levante, a goal scorer, 16 goals in 26 appearances last season. I think Real Madrid kind of fit that PSG mode of, okay, we're second fiddle to one of Europe's absolute giants, not for long. And people will probably laugh at that now, and probably for good reason, because there is a clear talent disparity between Lyon and PSG and Barcelona and Real Madrid. But if you're Real Madrid and PSG, what else are you going to do other than try to close that gap every single way that you possibly can? So I love the Redondo signing for them, and I'm excited to watch him play.
Totally agree with you on the excitement level around the team that they're going to try out. I thought they crushed this transfer window. It's not just Redondo. Antonia from Levante, Melanie Leopolds from Chelsea, Lacroix from Montpellier, Felipe Angodal from your Manchester City Sky Blues, and 23-year-old forward Eva Navarro. So I think they crushed it. I mean, they're not messing around. They also it looks like they let Claudia Zornoza go. She signed with Utah Royals as well.
I like that.
And then I think Haley Rasso remains unsigned. Doesn't look like she'll be returning to Real Madrid. But yeah, in my one team category for let's name some teams, Real Madrid was a team that I'm like, we've got to mention kind of like the moves they made. I thought they really made an impact this window.
Totally agree. A little bit of a bummer, and sorry if you mentioned her, but Ivana Andres going to Milan.
That's right.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it'll be cool if Serie A Femenil can kind of really start to bubble up. I mean, I know you and I loved watching AS Roma play in the Champions League. It'll be cool to see if they're able to kind of really build a great league over there. And I'll just do this just for fun because Serie A on the men's side stinks. And it's not nearly as good as it was when I was a kid. So let's go ahead and build up the women's side of the game over there.
For sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome. They did lose Lynette Berenstein. She moves over to Wolfsburg to maybe replace Pajor. Two more that I want to name. Elizabeth Turlin to Manchester United, another goal machine from Brighton.
Yep.
I think she's going to fit in really, really well there. I mean, I'm not betting anymore. Those days might be behind me. But her to lead the league in goals, that might be worth a little look if you could get in at maybe a plus 750, plus 800 kind of range. My Gunners, Mariona Caldentey, Daphne von Domselaar.
Waiting for these.
Welcome to the squad. And yeah, this was a really fun transfer window. And I think they're only going to get funner from here as we keep expanding the tentacles. Friends of the pod keep getting, these jobs in higher up places. There's going to be more connections, more little whispers that we're going to have access to.
Yeah, I thought it was a really exciting window. I think I want to leave with two more players, if I may. And speaking of our friends of the show, we talked to the great Miriam Karabi of She Scores Bangers about Simi Awujo, who was playing for the University of Southern California, who jumped out during the CONCACAF W Gold Cup. Now going to, in my opinion, the wrong side of Manchester, but still going to Manchester United from the University of Southern California. Just one of those classic football stories that you always hear. But jokes aside, I think that's super cool for Awujo, who has close to a limitless upside, I think.
She's going to terrorize that league. Very cool jump. UST to United. She was on my longer list, so she was mentioned there. Oh, Justine Jellen to Wolfsburg. That's a tough one, but we see you, Justine.
That was the last one I wanted to mention because it's not.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're good. Because it's not one of my favorites. I didn't like it. I don't like it for Braun. I didn't like it for the Braun Battalion. I was immediately bummed when I saw it. We saw on Twitter, all our pals, we saw you guys not thrilled about it either. They transferred her and they announced it right before an important fixture as well. And it was just like, hey, guys, what are we doing here? And then Braun later on, just earlier in the week, they drop another important one to Rosenborg. So, tough sledding in top Syrian right now for the Braun Battalion. We're trying to monitor. We're trying to watch along with you guys. We're also just behind the scenes trying to negotiate this deal with DAZN to show top Syrian over here. Still working on that. That's a long game, I think. But yeah, still holding it down in third place. It's going to be tough sledding to get in one of those top two spots to get into the next Champions League qualifying. But Braun, we see you. We were bummed to see Jelland leave the squad, but you guys are tough. You're going to develop more talent over there.
Absolutely. We're not selling any Braun stock.
No, never. No chance.
With that said, though, Was that the only worst transfer? Or was that at the top of your least favorite transfer list, or anything else we need to hit before we get out of here? I don't know.
I don't know if it counts as a transfer. It happened during the transfer window. I know there are a lot of takes about this on the internet. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it. Landon Donovan to San Diego Wave as the interim manager for the remainder of the season. I have thoughts and feelings, but I would like to give the floor to you to kind of hear where you landed on it.
I mean, this is maybe this is us being a little bit too gentlemanly, but we talked about this offline. I cannot get that that scenario out of my mind where Landon Donovan is just talking to a newly signed Delphine Cascarino and trying to explain to her how to play football.
Sure.
I just don't know what the fuck to expect. I mean, like, maybe I do need to unretire from betting and we just start betting against the Wave. Because is there, it's hard to even think of. Let me ask you this. What's a worse move they could have done that's within the realm of like all possible scenarios? Because I think this is pretty near the bottom of the list of you move on from Casey Stoney. We joked about this on the show. We had a good time with it. The notion of like they move off of Casey Stoney and then they look worse. Like, so. Right. Like clearly Stoney wasn't really the problem. I think those were the feels immediately after she was let go. And now it's like, I don't know, it just feels like it's slipping in the way, way, way wrong direction from here. Very curious to hear what your expectations are for the squad and Donovan.
Well, so, I mean, you ask, what's a worse move they could have made? I just want to be like real straightforward about this. Online discourse is online discourse. It's often terrible, and it's often, depending on the side that's making it, it's often done in bad faith. Here's my thing. This is my really, really spicy take. If you are hired to be the manager of a women's football club that won the NWSL Shield last season, and you're going to be the interim manager, to be the caretaker for another half of a season in which you still have an opportunity to sneak in the playoffs. And on your roster, you have the best center back in the world in Naomi Girma. Now, you've just added a world-class striker in Delphine Cascarino. You have Maria Sanchez on the left-hand side. You have Alex Morgan. And then you have the young budding star Jaden Shaw on your team.
Kaylin Sheridan.
You have Kaylin Sheridan in goal. You have a lot of excellent players. This is my super high standard. So if people want to criticize me for having this very high standard, have at it. I would like that manager to have been a coach for a women's football team at least once in their career prior. And if that is too high of a standard for some people, then that's fine. But for me to consider it a serious move, a move that where you are focused on winning football matches and getting back into contention in a season, then I think you should put a manager, and I'll say it one more time, it's the last time I'll repeat myself, a manager who has managed a women's football team at least once in the past.
100% agree. I mean, perfectly said. I think serious and the lack of seriousness of this hire is like level 100. It just doesn't get less serious than this hire. It took them a month and a half, 2 months to find this next interim. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know who. I don't know. I feel Brighton's in San Diego, right?
Yeah, I think she'd take the job.
Let's go. Like, what are we doing? No, I mean, we should check in with her to see if she's going to be at any of these games or getting her finger on the pulse somehow. All right, man. I think we thoroughly did it. Great transfer window draft. I think this has got to be, I don't know. It would be nice to kind of set this up as a little bit of an ITC tradition. Let us know if you enjoyed it, what you think we should do, any kind of tweaks you think we can make. Quick programming reminder. We're going to be back early next week to talk NWSL Match Day 17. Spirit hosts the KC Current. Miley leading Orlando Pride visit the Houston Dash. And Grant's Seattle Reign will be back in action against a tough North Carolina Courage side. Maybe Cataline makes another appearance at Lumen Field and also in Grant's Nightmares. We'll see. We'll keep you posted. And then next week, we're going to drop our Champions League preview. Champions League kicks back into action September 4th. A swath of UWCL teams are back in action. Paris FC, My Arsenal, Eintracht Frankfurt, St. Polten, Benfica, Sparta Praha, not to be confused with Slavia Praha, FC Twente, amongst many, many others. It is going to be a banger of a tournament. You already know your boy's going to be covering it from top to bottom. With that said, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Let me do two lasts. The match against North Carolina Courage for Seattle Reign will also be Megan Rapinoe's jersey retirement. Obviously,
let's go.
No-brainer. completely fitting for the legend. I'll come back with updates on that. And then you mentioned your Orlando Pride. Shame on us. We did not mention, correct me if I'm wrong, Carson Pickett to your Orlando Pride from Louisville. I think
Very
that could
excited.
be a really nice piece for you guys. Two-time best 11, I believe. Let me make sure I got my notes correct on that. Yeah, two-time NWSL best 11 in 21 and 22 while playing for the North Carolina Courage. Great defensive midfielder, smart player, has played in Orlando before. Orlando is going to keep competing for the double here. I think they have a real look at winning the Shield and possibly winning the championship. So those are my two lasts.
That'll be wild. Also, get well soon, Grace Chanda. Very sorry to hear about the injury. Carson Pickett, big time pickup. Appreciate the shout out there. All right, man. I think we did it. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Sincere thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, following, just plain hanging out with your boys. Subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app, especially if you listened all the way through to this point in the episode. We appreciate you. You already know. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. Big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Angle. I'm not going to hold it against you. He took Rosa Kafaji, took Kika Nazareth, just pulled the rug out from your boy, but that's all right, man. I always appreciate you. Got love for you. And I think we crushed it. What else is there? Not much more to say.
Likewise, buddy. I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel great about doing it. I thought for sure when I gave you the first pick, I was like, well, this is obviously going to be Kafaji. But the Chawinga pick, that's the right pick to win a draft. Everybody let us know that Dino won the draft. I already know how that's going to go. That's how these drafts tend to go. Also, free your mind, though. Come on. Like, at least try to see it from my point of view here. But seriously, thank you guys for rocking with us. Let us know who we missed on the transfer episode. Like Dino said, the football is almost here, so hang tight. Hopefully this episode helps get you through, and we will talk to you guys next time.